Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I am your host, Evan Abrams, and I am joined, as always, by the one, the only, Brandon Anderson for this week's Best Bets episode. Now, there's been tons of football, but right now we are going to focus on the Saturday slate, the Sunday slate, and a little bit of Monday if we get there. But it's week 17, so we're looking towards the weekend here. Now, before we get into this, Brandon, what's up? How are you? How's life? Merry
Hey,
Christmas.
we got NFL on Christmas, NBA on Christmas, great slate of games on both of those. NFL wasn't the best. We got to get Beyonce concert out of it. And, can't complain about a couple of good games. We got Thursday night as we tape this. We're watching football nearly every day. How bad can life be?
Yeah, only day, not Tuesday. So, Mac Bowl games or whatever it is outside that window. We are full NFL ahead. But let's just focus now on some of the the Christmas games that were on Wednesday. So, KC, Pittsburgh, Houston, Baltimore, and then we'll get into a few topics here. So, let's start with KC, Pittsburgh. I'll let you go first. Just what's your thoughts on the game, thoughts on the result, and anything in the future kind of for both teams?
Yeah, I had to rock the Chiefs shirt today. Got it new for Christmas just in time for the Chiefs to lock up the 1 seed. We're not going to see a lot of these guys again for a while now. I think that Kansas City now has the dream path as they hoped for to the AFC Championship. They're the 1 seed. They get the bye week. Best way to not lose in the playoffs is to not play in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes has the ankle. Chris Jones didn't even play here. They got 5 sacks anyway, even without him. He's going to be resting. I think Mahomes will probably be resting. They're just getting ready now. And frankly, we talk about peaking at the right time. This is the best 4-game stretch of the Chiefs season so far. Like, they are hitting all the cylinders right now. The offense is getting healthy. They got Joe Tooney moving from guard over to left tackle. They just played 3 games in 11 days against the Browns and the Steelers and the Texans. Great pass rushes, all 3, with Mahomes on a bad ankle. They had 0 turnovers and 1 sack. This is the Chiefs in December. This is what we knew we were heading to. I thought they really attacked Pittsburgh well, just hitting quick passes to the outside against the corners that just weren't healthy and weren't ready to do the job. Not really that close of a game. Closer it turned out than the other one. Pittsburgh probably stuck in as the 5 seed now. So in all likelihood, Chiefs are going to be off for about a month, resting a little bit, and then they're going to play either Houston or Pittsburgh in all likelihood, the 2 teams they just beat in the last week in that first playoff game. And then here we are again for the everyth time this in his career, Patrick Mahomes in the NFC Championship game yet again.
Yeah, I think the only takeaway from both games yesterday were the better teams won both games. The more solid teams won both games. I even said on the Sunday Night Football recap pod, I think KC's offense is a little underrated at this point. Like, they have more options than they have in previous years. And even without Rashee Rice, I think they've done their job to kind of fill those holes. And their defense, second half especially, an absolute stranglehold every other game. It's just every game it feels like last 2 seasons, they are 27-10 to the under in the second half, under by almost 5 points per game. And I think you see it every single game, which is they put a stranglehold on the game. Teams have a very difficult time putting up points in the second half against them. So I think Casey's fine. We'll see them in 3 weeks to a month. Aside from that, I think Pittsburgh is probably the more interesting thing here. So lost 3 straight games now of 10 plus points. It's the first time they've done that since 1988. And I thought this was interesting. So I looked this up. November on, teams to lose 3 straight by 10 plus in the end of the season, right? So the end of the year with a winning record, none of them made the conference championship game. So This type of stretch that Pittsburgh is having, do I think there's some potential value there? I'm going to talk about that a little bit because they are 40, 50 to 1 to win it all because of this. But history does not look great on their side. So let's go to Baltimore and Houston. Quickly, anything you saw there other than kind of the same game as the first one?
Yeah, I saw the Beyonce halftime show. Spectacular Super Bowl show, basically. As far as the game, not a lot here. Texans scored 2 points. Obviously, the big swing is they get the safety, they get the ball back, they drive down with the help of pretty questionable DPI, but they get inside the 5, go for it on 4th down. I like that, but you get stopped. That's it. They don't score again the rest of the game. They only get those 2 points. First time in the Super Bowl era, we got a 31-2 score. So not quite a scoregami because we got some old school games in here. But yeah, just dominant performance. We're going to get, I think, to the MVP conversation shortly. I thought the MVP of this game, much as I've thought often this season, was not Lamar Jackson. I thought it was Derrick Henry. 27 carries, 147 yards early in the game, just gashing Houston. This is the number one defense by DVOA coming to the game. 147 yards. He had a 74% success rate. From next gen stats, that is the best they have ever tracked for a runner with at least 25 carries. That's from their stats from 2016 forward. That is a volume just getting downhill. Almost all of it is between the tackles. That's just, you can't stop us, Houston. We're coming right at you. Houston was missing both safeties in this game, and obviously that matters up the middle. Derrick Henry just set the tone early. Lamar Jackson did the thing late and got everyone talking, but this is pretty ugly for Houston. It's 59% success rate for Baltimore on the game. Houston, 32% success rate, less than 1 out of 3, under 20% success rate on the ground for them. I don't know if you were more concerned here about what your offense couldn't do or what your defense couldn't do. It's all pretty bad. So I guess my question to you is, you just gave the bad news on Pittsburgh, the way things look with them. Houston, a team that you and I have been both kind of fading throughout this season, this is not a great look for them. They didn't even look like a playoff team, but they're already locked into the 4 seed here, and they're going to probably play another game like this coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, my notes were more towards Houston than they were towards Baltimore. I'm not sure I learned too much about Baltimore in this one. I think their defense looked better, which is a positive to them. But from a Texans point of view, Joe Mixon's inconsistencies, so last 7 games, his yards per carry has just been up and down. It's I'm going to go in order here: 2.9, 4.1, 1.9, 5.1, 1.6, 5.5, 1.8. As you can see, it's just an absolute roller coaster. And I think what they need on offense, especially when now you definitely don't have both Nico and Tank in the lineup, is you need some run help to kind of open up the passing game. And that just hasn't been there every single week. I also kind of say this. So the Texans have faced 10 teams this year, 66% win percentage or higher. They're 3-7 in those games. They've beaten, no, I'm sorry, that's not just this year. That's just for CJ Stroud. He's beaten Pickett, Caleb Williams, and Josh Allen in those 3 wins. But I think the biggest issue is in the last 6 games against those opponents, their defense allowed 31, 27, 26, 24, 20, and 34. That is just a lot of points that the number 1 DVOA defense this year hasn't been great against great offenses and good teams. So I think that's the issue for Houston. And then Baltimore, I'm honestly just looking ahead. I was looking towards the playoffs. I found this interesting because they're probably going to face, and you'd probably know this better than I, but I think they're going to face the Chargers or Broncos, it looks like at this point. Does that feel
Baltimore?
right to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the AFC playoff picture just set the stage. We're going to get to that in a second. Chiefs are locked at 1. Houston is locked at 4. Buffalo is effectively locked at 2 unless they lose out and Baltimore wins out. So that's not going to happen. So we got Chiefs 1, Bills 2, Ravens 3, as long as they beat the Browns next week with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We'll be coming back to that. That's a win. So Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Texans. Looks like Steelers at 5. And then for now, yeah, Chargers and Broncos kind of jostling for 6 or 7. So Houston would be probably playing Pittsburgh. Could still be one of those teams, Chargers or Broncos, depending on how things shake out. Pittsburgh still got to play the Bengals, so they could catch another L, and they might just kind of pack it in too. So it's one of those 3 for Houston. Baltimore should be playing likely one of those 3, probably one of the AFC West teams.
Yeah, and I think the issue with the AFC West teams is they're both really good defensively. And I found this interesting. So Lamar in his career, 12-3 straight up versus defenses averaging under 20 points per game. That's the good part. The bad part is in the playoffs, the 2 best defensive teams he's faced scored 22 total points in those games and 0-2 against the 23-24 Chiefs and the 19-20 Titans. So regular season versus playoff Lamar has been very, very different, and that is a bit of an issue. But let's just keep going here. So AFC Playoff Picture is the next topic. I think you wanted to rank Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. I'll start in just saying I think it's KC, Baltimore, and Buffalo. That would be probably my order at this rate. I don't know if my order has even really changed the last few weeks. with Buffalo's up and down, KC's consistency, and Baltimore kind of rising. But what are your thoughts? And we can talk about anyone else we like in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to get past those three in the AFC, especially after these games we just got Saturday and Christmas. The next teams are the Steelers and Texans, who just lost to these teams, basically, right? So I agree. I would have had a week ago Baltimore number one. They're the team that I've been investing some futures in. I'm skeptical about Lamar Jackson. We all know this about me, but I think the Baltimore entire product, Derrick Henry, the defense that has really come around since moving Kyle Hamilton full-time to safety, like that I believe in. However, Baltimore, even though they should win the division now, has a path that they're going to have possibly what I think could be the toughest first-round opponent in the Chargers among the options in the AFC. And that, Justin Herbert, you don't want to face, you'd much rather face, Russell Wilson or Bo Nix than Justin Herbert. I'll just put it that way. And then you got to go to Buffalo. I do like the matchup against Buffalo. They crushed Buffalo earlier, but you still got to play at Buffalo. You still got to play Josh Allen, and then you got to go to Kansas City. So I think by default here, the Chiefs have to be number one because of the path that they have. They don't have to play the first game. That's a great way not to lose. And then they should play Houston or Pittsburgh, which we just saw. They can bleed the life out of the game and just kind of beat you pretty easy in that game. So I think you have to think of the Chiefs as sitting at home in the AFC Championship game, I think against Baltimore. And I would consider Baltimore in that game. And we'll get there when we get there. But Baltimore has to get to that game, or Buffalo has to get to that game. And because of that path, you can't put them ahead of the Chiefs in the pecking order anymore. So that's kind of how you have to think of it. I do have Buffalo last. I think Buffalo's gotten pretty inconsistent defensively, and definitely something to keep an eye on with them. If it's not one of those three, who do you think could come out of the AFC if it's somehow not Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City?
Yeah, if you're just stabbing out of the air, I think Pittsburgh, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, is just a good price at the moment, considering, bad stretch, bad history based off what I told you before, but still 40 and 50 to 1 in that area feels a little heavy at this point, considering they can win on the road, their defense is consistent. And the other one I really wanted to say was Denver. Denver's like 60 to 70 to 1. I still am interested in that. Top half of the league in weighted DVOA on offense, and they're fourth in defense. So even recently, they're going to give some quarterbacks some amount of trouble. And we even saw it against Kansas City this year. Like they can stay in those games, and Peyton's a little bit of a wizard. I don't know. That range is a little high to me.
Yeah, I get it with those teams. I'm going to go the other direction here. I'm just going to default to quarterback. If I'm coming through the AFC, I'm probably going to have to beat Mahomes. I'm probably going to have to beat either Allen or Lamar or both, possibly. I'm going to have to beat all three of those guys. So I want Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Give me the quarterback, the defense, and the coaching. That'd be my pick of a sleeper. And we'll get back to in a second, if I have to take a shot on someone, give me who I think might still be the hottest quarterback right now, Joe Burrow. If they get in, we know they can win on the road. We know he can win a shootout. We know he can win in Arrowhead. He's not going to be afraid, and they can put up the points on any one of these teams. So I think that's the team nobody wants to see in if you're those top teams.
The margins are just so thin there when they allow 50 points per game and their defense is terrible. All right, let's keep going. The other question is the MVP still alive? Kind of an AFC conversation at the moment. The only stats I'll give you here before I toss it to you, listen, Lamar, 39 touchdowns and 4 picks. QB rating is 20 points higher than Josh's. He's also 21st in the NFL in rushing, 6.6 yards per carry. His completion percentage, also 4.5, 5 percentage points higher. Only one quarterback has had 40 plus passing touchdowns and 5 or fewer interceptions. That was Rodgers in 2020. And then when you look at Josh, 26 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and I get it, 11 rushing touchdowns, but to me, a difference of let's call it 1.5 wins on average, especially if Baltimore wins a division. And I know what Derrick Henry's done. It's just, I think Lamar's award. And he's the underdog right now. What's your thoughts?
I disagree. I think this is Josh Allen. I think that this thing is awesome. Over and has been over. I think this is we're tired over Christmas break conversation. The only real case you can make for Lamar head-to-head with Josh, I think, is just the counting stats. And I know the counting stats matter for this sort of thing, but Josh Allen has won more games. He's going to have the better seed only by 1, I know. He did lose head-to-head to Lamar. That's the best argument that you can make going back several months ago to a game that we've forgotten about somewhat. Allen's had the bigger moments down the stretch here. He caught the touchdown pass on the little lateral thing. He had the big game against the Chiefs. He's had these big moments here. In a weird way, I thought actually the Texans being so bad on Christmas sort of hurt Lamar's chances because you kind of need the Heisman moment. And I know he had that big run to start the second half. I was like, it was 17-2. Like the game was basically over anyway. You put the final nail in the coffin. Baltimore is going to play Cleveland next week. Who cares? Well, I don't care what Lamar does against Cleveland next week. Like you put up 500 yards and four touchdowns. He's done that. That's fine. It's
but what
Cleveland.
if Josh? But what if Josh doesn't play? What if Josh doesn't play next week because they don't need it and Lamar tears up Cleveland? You think that helps at all?
I don't think it helps. I think the only way that this is a true MVP discussion, and I would hate it, and I don't think it should go this way, but I think Josh Allen has struggled against the Jets very often in his career. He did not earlier this year, and the Jets defense is not good. If Allen, on the heels of another big game and the conversation happening, if Allen lays a stinker, has the Josh Allen game against the Jets this weekend, right now, while everyone's talking, and especially then, if he sits out next week because things are locked up anyway, that's not a great way to send it into the conversation. Now I think it's open. I don't think that happens. I'll be on Allen props in a little bit. I think it goes the other way. I think if this game wasn't a standalone on a Wednesday with the middle of the week, if it just happened on a Sunday, it'd be like, who cares? Like Allen had his big game like 2 hours later. This is just what's happening. The underlying stats, the metrics that look at not just interceptions, but turnovers, the fumbles count too, stuff that counts sacks and sack yardage, the way that he's getting help from his team, Lamar versus Josh Allen, just holistic picture. If you reduce it to some cherry-picked counting stats, then you can do the Lamar thing. I think beyond that, the fact that Lamar just won also last year and then lost in the playoffs, I think there's going to be some voter fatigue again. We got the expanded ballots now. I think Lamar's going to finish. I think Allen finishes 1 or 2 on every ballot. I think Lamar finishes 3, 4, 5 on some ballots. I think Saquon's going to sneak in there. Some people will be like, people like me, if I had a ballot, it'll be like, no, man, Lamar shouldn't have had this thing last year. I'm not putting him up on the ballot. I'm going to put Saquon. I'm going to put Joe Burrow for what he did or something like that. I think Lamar finishes down ballot a little bit, loses some of those second to fourth place margins. I think that matters here too. So I personally think unless Josh fails this weekend, I still think it's over. I still think it's him.
Fantastic conversation. Let's keep rolling here. NFC. So let's do the playoff picture quickly. You wanted to rank Detroit, Minnesota, Philadelphia. Listen, the Hurts thing throws this absolutely in a loop, especially with that line kind of crashing this week. I will say Philadelphia, Detroit, Minnesota, but that it's just very hard with the injuries back and forth, especially Detroit kind of crawling to the finish line in terms of what's left on that roster. This one to me was much more tough. You go first. What do you got?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know we have an answer here. The Jalen Hurts stuff has come out the last couple hours as we're waiting on this. I was ready to do a Cowboys money line pick earlier today. It was like a plus 350. That's now down to like a plus 250. It's looking like Hurts may not play. Yeah, he had a concussion, and they don't really need him necessarily this week. That was kind of the point of the pick. I think it makes it all kind of mucky, though. We don't know what he'll be like coming back. He runs a lot, so will he run a lot? Will he be tentative? What will that look like? We may not find out until the playoffs. That I think you have to put Detroit first among the teams here because I think they're still the favorite to be the 1 seed. So at this point, to me, we've talked about this a lot this season. I think the AFC is those 3 teams. I think the NFC is where you want the sleeper from. I'm not going to comment about my Vikings. I can't do it. I can't believe in this team. I can't recommend this a better. That's just me, the Vikings fan. I can't. The metrics are all pretty good. It looks pretty good. I still think the NFC is where you want the sleeper from. And I still think it's the team that we've been talking a lot about that I've bet a few times. I still think it's the Packers. And I think they are just as good as these other teams at the longer odds. And frankly, as a bettor, I would love to see the Packers lose convincingly in Minnesota this week so that they kind of fall off the radar a little bit, buy me a little bit of odds. Doesn't really matter. They're going to be the 5 or the 6 seed either way. They're going to have a nice first round look against not either any of these other 3 teams. And I think the Packers could go on the road and put up points in Detroit. They could put up points in Minnesota or in Philly. They could match. Jordan Love can be the best quarterback in the conference. I still think the Packers are really good and the team that in the NFC you want to avoid.
Yep, Green Bay was on my list at 12-1. And then let's go to the next question here because it kind of answers my other one, which is 10-1 or longer, Super Bowl or conference. I liked Pittsburgh. I said it earlier. Do I think, the stat is helpful with the losing three in a row by 10 plus? It isn't, but at 40 or 50-1, hard to pass up the pedigree, and I think they can win on the road. The other one I think is really interesting. It's like 90-1 or 100-1 right now. It's just Atlanta. I mean, their defense is second in EPA per play since week 12. Their weighted DVOA still stinks because their entire season resume isn't great there. But we liked Atlanta in the preseason. Most of their roster is still intact. We already got the quarterback change from Maul Santa into a rookie who looks like he's decent, looks like he can move. And I know the history of rookies making winning Super Bowl not good. I don't think 2024, 2023, the idea of a rookie is what it used to be. I think there's progression. I think there's learning. I think they learn quickly. And I think the Bo Nixes, the Michael Penixes, I think they have a shot as long as their roster's together. So those were my two. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just Packers for me. The realistic answer, that's the one we've been talking about already. So I've already got positions on the Packers a couple of different ways. I don't need a new position. So I went way down the board here. Give me a ticket, and I'm putting it in the app for a tenth of a unit. Cincinnati Bengals Super Bowl winners, 180-1, because I want the long shot to even make the playoffs. They got to beat Denver this weekend. They got to beat Pittsburgh next weekend. Not looking so bad to be able to do that. They still need some other help just to get in, just to be the 7th seed. Then they got to go to Buffalo. I think they could win that one. Then they have to go to Kansas City. We already know how Burrow can play at Burrowhead, as he calls it. It is a long shot for sure. At 180-1, nobody's as hot as Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. The defense is awful, but Lou Anarumo's been good in the playoffs and for like a one-off game, getting the right scheme to set up, I think, to give his team a shot. And it might be one of those where it's like, can you make 2 stops? Because Burrow and Chase and T are going to score enough drives. If you can like stop once per half, give the Bengals a shot. I don't really think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but could they get in and win a game, maybe 2? And suddenly I got a ton of options on a 180-1 ticket. That's my case. Bengals 180-1.
Yeah, I looked at Seattle at 170. I saw Cincinnati at 180. I decided neither of them, but Cincinnati probably has the better shot here. All right, before we get into your best bets on FanDuel, there is a list of Christmas special bets. And there were 2 I kind of liked. I will do them quickly after. Was there anything you liked there from that list?
Do yours first, then I'll chime in.
Okay, so I don't necessarily think these have incredible value. I know a lot of these odds are kind of being stripped a little bit here, but this is just some fun pizza money. I like the leg nog, which is 11-1, and a kicker to have a 65-plus yard field goal. Is this happening? Probably not, but I did look one thing up. So total field goal attempts this year from the opponent 40 to the opponent 50. Basically, who the hell knows? Let's throw it up there. There's been 32 of them. We only had 18 last year, 26 the year before, 15 before that, and 23 before that. So I do think coaches are now more likely to kind of throw them out there in certain situations. So it's just a luck box to see where they are in the field, like let's say before the half. And then the other one, Jingle Bell Brock, which is 4-1. Bowers, 40-plus receiving yards in each half. New Orleans, 28th in DVOA versus tight ends, 22nd in yards. And also, they're 31st in middle of the field DVOA on defense. And since October 1st, tight ends 8-2 to their yards over versus New Orleans. They're going to force him the ball. And this just feels like in a garbage game, you look up on Red Zone and he's got like 144 yards. And he's just like rolling down the field with a ton of targets. So those are my 2 bets.
I love Brock Bowers this week. We'll get to him wrapping up in my prop section. I love the section here. Like, we got It's Saquonderful Life. We got Santa's Kittle Helper. Like, someone was in their bag on these. So I got 2 for you here. There's no way I'm not betting Mary Thickness. Any offensive lineman to score a touchdown this weekend, give me the thick man touchdown. You know I'm always wanting that one. Plus, we got the Lions playing Monday night to close things out. I got one more shot at Dan Skipper or some goofy offense. Like, this is week 17. We got like 3 or 4 awful games between teams doing nothing. Why wouldn't you drop something for your backup right guard or stupid? I don't know what they're doing. Let somebody score a touchdown. It's plus 850. And then one that I actually genuinely like and is in my best bet section, so we'll come back to the case for it. Christmas MVP. Josh Allen, 2 rushing scores, 2 passing scores, 15-1. I think that is a bad number. We'll get back to the case in a little while.
All right, let's go to your best bets. Arizona and the Rams. My only stat here is Kyler's incredible as an underdog. 31-17-2, 500 or better in each of his 6 seasons. What do you like here?
I love the Cardinals. We talked about this here on Sunday night as a good possibility. Give me the Cardinals +7. One last chance for me to lose money on this stupid division that's been raking me over the coals for the last month or two. I just don't think these teams are that far apart, even with the injuries. I don't love the injuries. I think this line has moved a little bit because of them. The Cardinals are missing both tackles and possibly James Conner. I don't love that for them. But you look at the season-long metrics, I think it paints a different picture than the recency bias we're feeling. Offense DVOA, Rams 9th, Cardinals 11th. Basically the same. Defense, Rams are 20th, Cardinals 16th. Arizona's better, and Arizona has much better special teams. The Rams are always bad special teams under Sean McVay. I think, obviously, these teams are going in opposite direction. Obviously, this is a spot where the Cardinals just got eliminated. The Rams need to win to make the playoffs, win the division. We know, Evan, with all the trends, this is a spot to not bet on the motivated team that's getting like the boost in the line. We know how that goes here. This is Arizona's Super Bowl now. They're out. This is it. This is their last chance to do anything of note, is to beat the Rams and take a division rival and put them on the brink, not necessarily in the playoffs. I'd like to. We know I hate these stupid first quarter bets. Arizona was one of those teams I kept betting. They're the number 1 offense in the first quarter. The Rams are bottom 2 defensively in the first quarter. I'm not betting it. I'm out on the first quarter bets. But boy, I wouldn't mind it if you go up like 14-0. Guess who did that the last time they played the Rams? The Cardinals early this season, 14-0 first quarter, 21-0 before the Rams got going. And then here's the stat, week 16 or later, teams that are 40-60% win rate, like the Rams, playing someone 8-25% worse. 31-75-5 ATS, 29% hit rate for the Rams in a must-win spot like this. Is not a spot you want to back the team. It's the inflated line. The Rams want to clinch the division, but you got to bet on the points here. NFC West has been the best division to bet road underdogs of under 7 points. 70% cover rate, 79% when it's between 3 points and a touchdown. And then Kyler as an underdog, 66%. You mentioned that one. Matt Stafford favored by more than a field goal, 41%. It's just too many points. Get the 7 if you can. I don't mind if it's just below. I think Arizona can cover. I think Arizona can win this game and still make that NFC West interesting going into the last week.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. All right, let's keep going. NFC matchup, Carolina and Tampa Bay. The only note here, Bryce Young has been much, much better since he got back. And the one stat I thought that was great that kind of showed that off, he's using his legs. First 3 starts, he had 8 scrambles for 34 yards. Week 9 on, he has 22 scrambles for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think it's opening up the field a little bit. So Carolina, Tampa, what do you like?
Yeah, very similar to my last one. I like the Panthers here. Give me the Panthers +8. And it's a really similar sort of case in a division game against a team that's got to have the win here. Now, it doesn't quite fit that trend I just said. The Panthers' win rate is a little too far below for it. But frankly, it should fit the trend. The Panthers should have got a couple of these wins lately. They're just not quite closing the deal. But they've covered 6 out of the last 7. And if you look back at the last 6 weeks, the Panthers have been pretty good. Now, we bet against Carolina one time. We bet Dallas when the line was bad. Dallas crushed Carolina. If you take that game out of the sample, that's not totally fair. But if you did, the Panthers by DVOA are 15th. They're a league average team over the last 6 weeks outside of that Dallas game. They're 12th on offense. Dave Canales, stand up. Bryce Young, 12th offense. Like, this is legitimately, 12th is a playoff offense. This is a real offense right now. The defense has improved to 22nd. That's not great, but it's out of the bottom 10 at least. The Buccaneers' season-long metrics are really good, but game to game, they're still really inconsistent, especially defensively, especially against the pass. Bryce Young, I guess we're betting on Bryce again to possibly be able to light things up here. Carolina's run defense has been terrible all year. Tampa's going to be able to run. I think the Panthers may run in this game too. Bucs usually are good run defense. Vita Vea always tough. Their run defense up the middle this season has not been good. They've been bottom 5 up the middle. In Carolina, that is where they live in the run game. So I think Chuba Hubbard can match Bucky Irving. I kind of like the over here, but that one's been bet up a few points. I think this is like a fun Sunday shootout, back and forth all game. Week 14 or later, division underdogs that are on a 1-game covering streak, like the Panthers, 57% ATS. Even better, if they're on a 1-game winning streak straight up, 71% ATS. Baker as a favorite, 38%. You love to fade Baker as a favorite. 8 points is too many for me. I make it maybe 5 or 6 for Tampa Bay. They're clearly the better team, just not this much better. We get the other side of the key number. I think you got to play the money line a little bit here too. Plus 340, but main bet, Carolina plus 8 is just too many points in a game that's inflated because the Bucs have to have it.
Carolina 6-1 ATS last 7 games. Let's see if they can stay inside the number here and keep it rolling. All right, next game, Cleveland, Miami. The only note here, DTR made 4 starts for the Browns. They've scored 34 points in those games. And maybe the biggest issue in his second half play, 1 passing touchdown, 8 picks in those games. Not great for DTR, but so I'm pretty sure you're going to be fading him on some way. So how's that working out?
Yeah, the question wasn't if, it was how. How do we fade DTR?
Yeah.
And I'm taking the DTR mine shaft all the way down. Give me the Browns under 16.5, and then we'll get to a couple alts as well. Had to wait and see, okay, is DTR going to play? He's got a calf injury. I want my man out there because he's terrible. Ken Dorsey says that they're prepping to start with DTR. So here's some of the stats this season. DTR has had 11 passes of 15 yards or more. He's 0 for 11 on those passes with 3 interceptions. This man is not an NFL quarterback. Over the last 2 seasons, there's been 55 quarterbacks with at least 200 plays. DTR in EPA and completion percentage over expected is 55th out of 55. He's dead last behind such luminaries as Drew Luck, Cooper Rush, Easton Stick, Zach Wilson, and Bailey Zappi, who, by the way, is the backup if DTR can't go, just in case. So, look, you may want to wait here. I don't want anything to do with this bet if Jameis happens to play. We know how I love betting on Jameis going YOLO and throwing it all over the place, but I think the Browns are leaning full tank. Miami's defense is pretty good, too, actually. They've been about average over the last 6 weeks, but top 10 against the run. So if they can stop the run a little bit, how is Cleveland going to score? They can't pass the ball at all here. In those DTR starts, as you mentioned, 8.5 points a game. Here's the point total by game. 3, 13, 12, and 6. All 4 of those easily under this number. So 60.5 is way too high. I'm taking the mine shaft. Under 10.5 points, 3-1. They've hit that in 2 of 4 starts for DTR. Hit the under. I guess I don't know if that counts as hitting, but we will take it as a hit. And then under 6.5 is 6-1 odds. So I think it's just an ugly, sloppy game that the Browns are not able to score in. But I do have a couple props. So let me add a couple props here. These are separate, but in this game, somehow this became my favorite game of the week to bet on. I don't know. Week 17, Dolphins, Browns. Here we are. I like Tyreek Hill to score a touchdown, plus 120. Browns are bottom 5 against wide receiver 1 by DVOA. Second most fantasy points allowed. 19 touchdowns allowed to receivers already. Tied for third most in the NFL. Tyreek has a touchdown in 6 out of 10 full Tua games. 5 of the last 7. Plus 120. I think this should be a minus odds. So kind of marginally in our favor. I love my long shots. Let's throw in the long shot. 2 touchdowns is plus 850. Maybe, isn't it just this fantasy championship weekend? Who's got Tyreek in their championship? Nobody, because he's stunk all season long. Isn't it just like that player to go out and have the huge game when you've finally been knocked out of your league? This is that game for Tyreek, so I like the touchdown. And on the other side, much as I hate DTR, one thing I've noticed is the guy that likes DTR is David Njoku. He does not throw to receivers. He loves the tight end, though. When DTR plays at least half of the game, his averages for Njoku, 7.5 catches, 61 yards. His line last week was 4.5 catches and 35.5 yards. So we don't have lines yet here, but I want to get this out to you. Dolphins have allowed the 7th most receptions to tight ends. Last 7 games have allowed 5 or more 5 times. They've allowed 8, 9, and 13 catches since week 8 forward. So I will be looking for a David Njoku escalator if DTR plays, like a 5, 6, 7 receptions. Nothing crazy. Just give me those dump offs in this kind of ugly, sloppy, weather nothing game where the Browns can't get the ball moving. If you want to go crazy, put some of this stuff together in a big SGP. this is the spot to do it. It's one of only 2 games in the afternoon. We all know I'll have my full attention over on Vikings Packers, watching that one with the family here. But hopefully Tyreek and Njoku are doing their thing. Hopefully DTR is doing his too and taking the mine shaft all the way down with no points on the board.
Yeah, here's the SGP for me at least. Cleveland under 16.5 team total, Njoku receptions over, and DTR rushing touchdown. So I'm going to try to call how they get into the end zone and still stay under the number as he's scrambling around. All right, let's go to now Brendan's Mary Propsmith. So we're going to go through a bunch of props here pretty quickly, just to go one by one here. You're starting with Bo Nix. I mean, he's done great in terms of scrambling. Bengals allow a lot of scrambles themselves. So what's the play here?
Yeah, I'm going to take the over on the rushing yards. This is a Saturday afternoon game, over 21.5 rushing yards. Big game. I was really close to coming out with a Denver plus 3.5. It's plus 3 a lot of places in the market. I do think it's a pretty good spot for Denver. If it's over a field goal, they got a big special teams advantage. I think they can score on this Bengals defense, but I have a lot of trends on the Bengals. Joe Burrow still got it. I did the whole Joe Burrow thing in the top here. I couldn't quite get there. And Denver does have the Week 18 game against the Chiefs in their pocket. They really need one of the games. So I think this is a little less of a desperation spot for them here. This looks sloppy. We might get like heavy rain, 20, 30 mile an hour wind gusts. Also, Bo Nix had a game like that in September against the Jets that went really, really badly for him. So I stayed away from that. But if it's sloppy and if the Bengals defense is beatable, how could I play it a different way? Well, I think Denver can pass. I think Bo Nix can do some stuff. And I think Bo Nix is going to do some stuff with his legs as well. We've seen that a lot this season where his instincts take over. He is a runner. He wants to go make a play with his legs if he needs to. Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals leads the league in sacks. He's the one-man pass rush machine. And here's what's happening. The Bengals allow the most rushing yards to quarterbacks. I think it's Hendrickson, the one guy getting through, gets the quarterback out and scrambling. And there's not a lot else out there. The rest of the Bengals are not getting the quarterback, so there's a little bit of room there. 10 different quarterbacks this season have run for 29 yards or more against the Bengals defense. Bo Nix has run for 23 or more 8 times himself. That obviously hits the over here. I think in a big game, you always like this is a playoff game essentially. You love the quarterback rushing in those big games because you know they're going to try to make some sort of desperation play with their legs. Just a simple one. Bo Nix over 21.5 rushing yards.
I like it. All right, let's go to Davante Adams here. Now, I'll give you one stat. We talked about the motivation. He threw Rodgers' 499th touchdown. Last 2 weeks, 22 targets for Davante. So on 17 first read targets, which means he's just looking for him. So what direction do you like Davante in?
Yeah, I'm giving you full credit on this one. I'm calling this the Evans special. We're going for the Davante Adams touchdown, and I'm getting a little escalator here. So give me a touchdown is plus 165 at the Bills. And my case is exactly what you just said. Aaron Rodgers has 499 passing touchdowns for his career. And boy, does it look like he wants Davante Adams, his buddy, to get number 500. Make sure he gets the ball back that way, right? Adams has had a touchdown in 4 straight games now with the Jets. 5 touchdowns the last 4. They got that timing back, right? We know how good this pair has been in the red zone. Timing is back. Go back to their last stretch, even into the Packers' time with Aaron Rodgers. He's had a touchdown in 10 of 16 now with Aaron Rodgers, at least one. And again, multiple TDs, like 4 of those games as well. This isn't even really a matchup thing for me. The Bills' pass defense is a little bit beatable lately. I just want the Davante touchdown. They're going to have a shot somewhere. But, okay, if I need it to be Rodgers' first touchdown so that we hit 500, then if you give him out a cookie, I got to take the escalator here. Plus 165 on the touchdown for Adams. But first Jets touchdown, plus 375. Doesn't have to be. It could be a rushing touchdown, but we can't get Rodgers throwing it to anybody else. And if it's the first Jets touchdown, we saw the Bills start out slow last week, trail early. How about the same here? First touchdown for Davante Adams is 11-1. I'm not going crazy on those. I don't have a lot of odds on these first touchdown bets. We'll let Jill handle that for us. But I think just a little fun on Davante Adams. And then let me just jump right into the flip side. Josh Allen, I mentioned him earlier. Josh Allen gave me his touchdown bet as well. It's minus 110 out there at one key book. Get that number for sure. It's minus 155 or longer. All the other books that I saw. Josh Allen, I think, is going to get with this Bills offense anything he wants on the Jets defense. They're bottom 5 pass defense the last 6 weeks. They're bottom quarter of the league defense on the road. The Bills are the number 1 home offense. Until last week against the Patriots, the Bills had scored 30 or more points 8 straight games. So I don't mind the team total over 27.5. If you want that, I'll take the Allen rushing touchdown, minus 110. He's done that 5 of 6 games now. The Jets have allowed 7 rushing touchdowns to quarterback, second most in the NFL. 2 touchdowns for Allen on the ground is 5-1. And that brings us all the way back to the top when I got that Christmas MVP bet at FanDuel, 15-1 for 2 passing touchdowns, over 1.5. That's his line. So basically 50-50 on that. 2 rushing touchdowns. Give me both of those 15-1. He's done that 3 times already this season, including 2 of the last 3 games. And I think that if they're close down near the goal line, they're going to give him that rushing touchdown because they want the stat. They want him to get that MVP. And I think he's going to go get it this Sunday. So Allen touchdown, and then that MVP bet posted at FanDuel under the specials. 2 passing and 2 rushing touchdowns, 15-1. Go get that MVP, Josh.
I'm going to have an SGP of Josh Allen, first touchdown for the Bills, and Devontae, first touchdown for the
love
Jets.
That.
Going to do that together. All right, your next prop here. Calvin Ridley. The only thing I found interesting, Calvin Ridley is 23rd in routes run this year. Of those top 23 wide receivers, he has the highest average depth of target. So something downfield might be something interesting for Ridley. So what are you exploring?
Yeah, I'm exploring Calvin Ridley on the revenge escalator against his old team, the Jaguars. This is an ugly, gross game, but we got a lot of those games this week. So let's get some props and make them interesting. A lot of trends like the under here. I can't get there. I am getting crushed on unders lately. This line is 39.5. Jaguars defense is terrible. The Titans defense has been almost as bad lately. I would rather attack the Jaguars defense with Calvin Ridley like the Titans will. They're dead last in DVOA. They're dead last passing DVOA. Jacksonville has led the 3rd most receiving yards to wide receivers. 13 guys this season have at least 69 yards. Very nice. 8 of those guys had a touchdown with their 69 yards. They also have allowed 800-yard games to receivers. So Calvin Ridley already played Jacksonville a month ago. He had 12 targets in that game, his second highest of the season. He had 7 catches, his second highest of the season as well. Now, only 59 yards, but he was close to a couple other big plays there. And I like Calvin Ridley better with Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph with Ridley, 8.5 targets for 75 yards. With Will Levis, 6.5 targets for 48 yards there. So big difference toward Mason Rudolph. Not really a touchdown threat this year, but he's a big dude. He's been a touchdown threat for his career. 8 or more touchdowns in 5 seasons, or 3 out of 5 seasons so far. So here's the revenge escalator. We'll start with just the receiving yards, over 58.5, 59 yards. That number is just a little too low, as much targets he's getting. Now, I don't need just the touchdown. It's plus 205. But again, 8 times this season, the Jaguars have allowed 59 or more and a touchdown, actually 69 or more and a touchdown. So put those together, that's plus 345. Calvin's done it himself 3 times already this season. And then on the way up, 100-yard game is plus 450. 120 plus a touchdown is 13-1. So obviously kind of slightly lower bets on the way up there. But I think Calvin Ridley, in a game that doesn't matter much to anybody, it should matter a lot to him. That did not go well for him in Jacksonville. It's back in Jacksonville this game. I think you'd like to show the fans there what they missed out on.
Yeah, breaking news. He just said in a press conference, actually, I want to get them. They talked shit to me last time. Calvin Ridley on facing his former team. So let's ride the escalator. Your last 2 here are both tight ends.
Yeah.
Give me them back to back.
Yeah, both tight ends here. I think it's a good tight end week. We talked about Njoku earlier. I'm going to go with TJ Hawkinson, over 43.5 yards against the Packers. This is that other big afternoon game. I got a lot of notes here about this game. This is a fun one. It's a really fun, good game. Best game of Sunday for sure. Packers are really good. No side for me. I just want Hawkinson here. We've been playing tight ends against the Packers multiple times. We hit the Jonnu escalator on Thanksgiving. We hit the Kittle touchdown the week before. Packers are bottom 3 against tight ends by DVOA. They've allowed 6 of them to have 50 or more yards. They've allowed 6 of them to have 5 receptions or more just since the start of October. And my guy Hawkinson loves playing the Packers. Last year, 6 catches, 88 yards, and a score. Previous year, 7 for 59 and 8 for 66 with Detroit. So on a totally different team, still shredding these Packers. And Hawkinson is playing more. His first 3 games back, coming off that IR, 40% snap rate, somewhere in that range. He's up to the 60s the next month. Last week, he hit 70% for the first time. And this is a huge game. So I got to believe he's going to be out there playing a lot, should get some of those dump offs that Minnesota is throwing every now and then. His lines are at 4.5 receptions, 43.5 yards. I like the receiving yards the most. He's hit that one in 4 of 8 and is playing more now. But watch the app. I'll probably end up working up a little bit of an escalator here. I think both those lines are low. The other one that I love, back full circle to one that you mentioned on the Christmas specials, give me the Brock Bowers. All the Brock Bowers. Let's take the receptions escalator. I almost came to the podcast with maybe my grossest pick of the season on a Saints Raiders over 37.5. My model loves that. I've got some trends backing it. I can't do it. I don't want to play that angle. I want to play Brock Bowers, because if they're going to do something useful offensively, why not the kid that's 10 yards away from the rookie tight end record, Mike Ditka's record, by the way? He loves him. I don't know. Ditka probably does love him. We love him. I think Aiden O'Connell loves Brock Bowers. When he starts or plays at least a third of the snaps this season, Brock Bowers' lines in 6 of those games average 8.5 catches, 92 yards on over 11 targets a game. He's had at least 71 yards all but one of those games. To your point, he had a 10-catch, 140-yard game, so maybe that hits your special as well. In those games, 5 of the 6 games, he had double-digit targets and 8 or more receptions. The Saints are bottom 5 DVOA against tight ends. They've only allowed 1 touchdown this season, but they really haven't faced many good tight ends. Guys they have faced put up big games. Njoku, 9 for 81. Kelsey, 9 for 70. Dallas Goedert, 10 for 170. That'll go well for your special. No lines yet on Bowers, but I liked it so much I had to fit in here. Last week, his line was 6.5 receptions. I'll be looking for over the 6.5, and then probably a receptions escalator like 8, 9, 10, all the way up. I think the Raiders, what else do they have left to do but give Brock Bowers a little push? Maybe not towards rookie of the year. I think that ship has probably sailed, but could he lead the league in receptions? Could he break some all-time rookie records? Why not? What else do they have to do? I think he has another really big game. And I think maybe we get another tight end Sunday. What do you call the National Tight Ends Day? Let's start a new National Tight Ends Day and hit all these tight end props to close out the year.
Yeah, and I can just see it too, because Ditka coached the Saints, so they can have some sort of Brock Bowers breaks his record, and there's the connection. It'll all just work out on the broadcast. All right, that's it. That's it for the Action Network podcast for Week 17 Best Bets episode. Do not forget to download the free, award-winning Action Network app to see more of our Action Network contributors. Plus, you can track your own picks. Also, check out our Action Network Discord server to chop it up with experts. I'm in there, fellow gamblers, tons of people hanging out and chatting during these games. There is a link in the description of the podcast. Also, do not miss our Week 17 betting preview episode with Stuckey and Raybon, which is out now. We will be back Sunday night for the recap episode. Me and Brandon talking about the entire Sunday slate. We will recap Saturday. We will talk about playoff scenarios, and we will be 1 week till the playoff field is set. Thank you for listening to the Action Network podcast. I'm Evan Abrams. That is Brandon Anderson. Good luck with all of your bets this week, and enjoy the weekend.